Hi art teachers! I have a really fun collage lesson to share with you that I know your students are going to love. So let's get started. Today we'll be creating a colorful and richly textured landscape collage. We will make textured paper ourselves using a technique called frottage, where you do a rubbing over a textured surface using a crayon, or in this case, a soft pastel. This is a technique that was actually pioneered by the Surrealists, and it's so fun to play around with. But before we get into the steps of our project here, I want to talk about the materials we're going to be using today. I've teamed up with ACMI for this lesson to talk to you about their safety seals that are on the back of art supplies. When buying art supplies, all you need to do is look for their seals. AP seals mean that the product is non-toxic when used as intended. ACMI sealed products are tested and approved by board-certified toxicologists and have been trusted by parents and teachers for decades. Another seal to look for is the CL seal. This seal lets you know that the product is safe for students age 12 and up when used as intended. Only a small percentage of materials in ACMI's program get the CL seal. All it means is that the product has been tested by toxicologists and it isn't hazardous when used correctly. Since this lesson is for middle school and high school students, we will be using 2 products with the CL seals today. Okay, so let's get started. The first step is to use the frottage technique. I've got some colored construction paper and some leaves I gathered from outside. I also collected a variety of objects that have textured surfaces that I can try out as we go along. So essentially you just put the paper on top of whatever texture you want to try out and rub carefully with the soft pastel. I really like to go in just one direction. I think it yields the best results. So encourage your students to really experiment in this step of the process. I'm going to try out using some tissue paper to make rubbings as well, and try out some different color combinations. Now we have all these beautiful textured papers, but they're still really powdery and can get smudged easily. So we need to use a spray fixative. This one has ACMI's CL seal. So I know if I follow the instructions on this product, it isn't going to be dangerous for myself or my students. Just make sure you read through the directions carefully. It says here on the back to spray in a well-ventilated area and to shake first, and then coat them generously. I'm going to do this under the ventilation hood in my classroom. So I brought over a piece that I already fixed to show you, and you can see it's not coming off at all on my finger. This is such a great product to use with soft pastels. So before we get into cutting our pieces to create the landscape, let's talk about pictorial space. It's a good thing to bring up at this point in the lesson. When designing a landscape, we want to consider the layers of space or grounds, the foreground, middle ground, and background. So when you look into the distance, you will often see something called atmospheric perspective, which makes the background much lighter than the foreground. The middle ground layers will vary in degrees of dark or light as they move forward or backward in space. For our collage, we want to use at least 3 layers, but more will make the composition richer and more interesting. The best advice for your students is to make sure the layers contrast from one another and to consider what type of landscape they want to make ahead of time. Sketches or mock-ups are always a good idea. So all of my textured paper is fixed and I've already cut out some of my pieces. So I'm just going to begin by layering them from background all the way to the foreground. So I have all my pieces laid out now, and I just have to glue them down. I have to work from the background to the foreground to get the layering right. For the glue, I'm just going to use this spray adhesive. I'm going to work in sections, flipping my pieces upside down on another sheet of paper and spraying the back of them. And again, I'm looking for that CL seal and making sure I follow all the instructions on the back of the label. So here I am placing my pieces down on a scrap sheet of paper to get ready to use the spray adhesive. I'm giving each piece plenty of space so they don't stick together. I'm going to go ahead and spray this under the ventilation hood again, but you can do this in any well-ventilated area. So with the glue applied to my first section of pieces, I'm going to go ahead and begin placing them down on my backing paper. I'm taking my time to get it into the exact right position, and then I'm using a piece of scrap paper to press it down. I like using a piece of scrap paper for gluing, so you can really smooth it down without worrying about smudging the pastel. So I'm just going to keep going here, and you can see that I'm just doing it piece by piece, and it's actually pretty meditative. So here it is, all glued down, but I went a little over the edges, and I actually went over quite a bit on the back. So I'm going to clean that up with some scissors and probably an X-Acto knife as well. So here's the finished collage. I'm really happy with how it came out. I love the sense of distance the layering created and the rich textures I made using the frottage technique. I really hope your students enjoy this lesson. Tag me over on Instagram at Artful Ideas Classroom with photos of their work. And don't forget to look for the ACMI seals whenever you shop for art supplies. Wishing you all a really fun and safe back to school season, and I'll see you in the next video.